What if I told you that this noise in your head, the anxiety, the rush, the need to check your cell phone, the feeling of always owing something, is not your problem? Is it the climate of the time? Byung-Chul says that the current era does not oppress you with chains. It overwhelms you with excess, drowns you in stimuli, makes you tired, and it still makes you think it's your fault. Today, we will decipher what this mental noise is revealing about our time and why silence has become a form of resistance. You know that feeling when your mind never stops racing? When you're scrolling through your phone at 2 a.m., knowing you should sleep, but something inside you keeps searching for. What exactly? When you're sitting in a room full of people but feel completely disconnected, like you're watching life through glass. When every notification feels urgent, every conversation feels shallow, and every moment of stillness feels unbearable. This isn't your personal failure. This is the signature of our era, what philosopher Byung-Chul calls the burnout society. But here's what most people miss. This mental noise, this constant agitation, this feeling that you can never quite catch your breath. It's not just modern stress. It's your soul rejecting a world that has become incompatible with depth, with meaning, with the sacred rhythm of human consciousness. You've probably noticed something shifting inside you lately. Maybe you can't tolerate certain conversations anymore, the ones that feel like performance, like everyone's reading from the same script. Maybe you find yourself pulling away from activities that used to excite you, from people who used to feel like home. Maybe you're experiencing what Jung would call a point of no return, a threshold where your psyche simply refuses to participate in the collective madness anymore. This isn't depression. This isn't weakness. This is your soul's intelligence recognizing that the external world has become toxic to your inner world. Han explains that we live in a society that doesn't oppress us with external force. It exhausts us with endless possibilities, infinite choices, constant stimulation. We become our own slave drivers, pushing ourselves toward burnout while believing we're free. But what if this mental noise is actually a calling? What if your inability to function normally in this hyper-connected, hyper-productive world is actually a sign of spiritual maturity? What if your soul is preparing you for something deeper, something that requires you to step completely outside the collective trance? Today, we're going to decode what your mental restlessness really means, why silence has become a radical act, and how your deepest exhaustion might be the beginning of your greatest awakening. 1. The death of your old operating system. You wake up and immediately feel it, that low-level anxiety humming beneath everything. Your phone buzzes, Instagram notification, work email, news alert. Your nervous system is already activated before you've even had coffee. You try to engage with your day the way you used to, but something feels fundamentally different. It's like trying to run old software on new hardware. Everything glitches. This is what Han calls auto-exploitation. You've become both the oppressor and the oppressed, pushing yourself to optimize, to produce, to stay relevant in a world that treats human attention like a commodity. But here's what's really happening. Your soul is rejecting the programming. Your psyche has evolved beyond the collective operating system, and now the old ways of being feel literally unbearable. From a Jungian perspective, this is the death phase of individuation. Your ego, the part of you that learned to navigate the world through performance, productivity, and external validation, is dissolving. This isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. Your unconscious is forcing you to confront the shadow of modern life, the emptiness beneath all the busyness, the meaninglessness beneath all the achievement. Spiritually, this is what mystics call the dark night of the soul. Your old identity is dying because your soul has outgrown it. You can't go back to caring about things that don't matter. You can't pretend to be excited about conversations that feed nothing real inside you. Your energy has become too precious to waste on what Han calls pseudo-activity, all the busy work that creates the illusion of purpose while keeping you spiritually starved. The practical shift here is radical. Stop trying to fix your productivity problem. Stop trying to get back to your old level of engagement with a world that your soul has already rejected. Instead, honor this death phase. Create space for the emptiness. Let yourself feel the full weight of what's ending before you try to birth what's beginning. Your old operating system is obsolete, and that's exactly as it should be. 2. The tyranny of infinite possibility. Every morning you're faced with endless choices: what to watch, what to buy, who to be, where to focus, and calls this the hell of the same. Everything feels available, but nothing feels meaningful. You scroll through Netflix for 20 minutes and choose nothing. You browse job listings but feel no excitement. You swipe through dating apps but crave real connection. The abundance is suffocating you. This is the shadow side of freedom. Previous generations had their paths largely determined by tradition, family, geography. You have infinite options and the weight of infinite responsibility for choosing correctly. But here's the deeper truth. Your soul isn't confused by the choices. It's exhausted by the illusion that external choices can solve internal emptiness. Jung understood that the psyche needs constraints to create meaning. When everything is possible, nothing feels necessary. Your unconscious is rebelling against this tyranny of choice by shutting down your desire altogether. What feels like depression or apathy is actually your soul's wisdom. It's refusing to participate in the endless consumption of possibilities that lead nowhere. Spiritually, this is a test of discernment. Your soul is learning to distinguish between what's available and what's aligned. The overwhelm you feel isn't a sign that you need better decision-making skills. It's a sign that you need to reconnect with your deeper knowing, your inner compass that can cut through the noise and point toward what actually matters for your unique path. The practical response is to embrace radical limitation. Instead of trying to optimize your choices, dramatically reduce them. Create constraints that force you to go deeper rather than wider. Choose one book instead of buying 10. Choose one meaningful conversation instead of networking with everyone. Choose one creative project instead of exploring every possibility. Your soul craves depth, not options. 3. The addiction to your own exhaustion. You're tired, but you can't stop. You complain about being overwhelmed, but you keep adding more to your plate. You say you want rest, but when you finally have free time, you fill it with scrolling, shopping, or planning your next move. You've become addicted to your own exhaustion because stillness feels too dangerous, too empty, too real. Han explains that we've internalized the logic of capitalism so deeply that we can't stop producing, even when we're producing nothing of value. You check your phone 150 times a day, not because you're expecting important messages, but because the act of checking gives you the illusion of productivity, of staying connected, of being needed. But from a depth psychology perspective, this addiction to busyness is actually an addiction to avoiding your shadow. The exhaustion keeps you surface level, skimming across the top of your life without ever diving deep enough to encounter the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. The constant stimulation protects you from the silence where your real feelings live. Spiritually, this is what the mystics call spiritual bypassing in modern form. Instead of using meditation or positive thinking to avoid your pain, you're using productivity and connectivity. The exhaustion becomes a drug that keeps you numb to the deeper questions. What do you actually want? What are you running from? What would happen if you stopped performing and just existed? Your soul is calling you toward what Han calls vita contemplativa, the contemplative life. This doesn't mean becoming a monk. It means learning to be present with yourself without needing to produce anything, fix anything, or prove anything. The practical step is to practice what I call productive boredom, deliberately creating space where nothing happens, where you're not consuming or producing, where you can finally hear what your soul has been trying to tell you beneath all the noise. 4. The collapse of authentic relating. Your relationships feel different now. Conversations that used to energize you now drain you. People you once felt close to now feel like strangers speaking a language you no longer understand. You find yourself nodding along to discussions about career moves, weekend plans, and social media drama. But inside you're screaming, is this really what we're going to talk about? This isn't you becoming antisocial. This is your psyche rejecting what Han calls the society of performance. Beturmo. Most social interactions have become performances where everyone is playing a role. The successful professional, the happy couple, the person who has it all figured out. But your soul has evolved beyond the need to perform, and now these interactions feel like psychological violence. Jung would say you're experiencing the shadow of collective consciousness. The group mind operates on shared illusions, and when you start to see through these illusions, you naturally feel alienated from the group. Your core wound isn't that you don't belong. It's that you've outgrown the places where you used to belong. Spiritually, this is the loneliness of the awakening soul. You're being called to a different level of relating, one based on authentic presence rather than social roles, on depth rather than surface compatibility, on truth rather than comfort. This phase feels isolating because you're between worlds. You've left the old way of connecting, but haven't yet found your tribe of souls who relate from the same depth. The practical path forward requires what I call relational boundaries. Stop trying to connect with people at their level if it violates your soul. Instead of pretending to care about conversations that feel empty, practice compassionate disengagement. Create space for the relationships that can meet you in depth, and let go of your need to maintain connections that no longer serve your evolution. Your energy is too precious to waste on relationships that require you to diminish yourself. 5. The sacred rebellion of doing nothing. In a world obsessed with optimization, your inability to be productive has become a form of spiritual resistance. You sit down to work and feel paralyzed. You try to engage with your goals and feel nothing. You attempt to care about the things you're supposed to care about and find yourself completely disconnected. This isn't laziness. This is your soul's refusal to participate in a system that treats human beings like machines. Han writes about the right to laziness as a form of political resistance. But on a deeper level, what you're experiencing is what Jung called the transcendent function, your psyche's ability to create something new by refusing to operate within the existing framework. Your laziness is actually your soul protecting your creative energy from being exploited by a culture that would drain it for profit. From a spiritual perspective, this is the fallow period that precedes all real growth. Just as soil needs to rest between crops, your soul needs periods of apparent non-productivity to regenerate its deeper creative powers. The mystics understood that the most profound insights come not from doing, but from being, from learning to exist without justifying your existence through external achievement. Your inability to function normally is actually your soul's intelligence recognizing that normal is toxic. The depression, the apathy, the lack of motivation. These aren't symptoms to be fixed. They're your psyche's way of protecting you from a world that would consume your life force and give you nothing real in return. The practical rebellion is to embrace what I call sacred idleness. Instead of fighting your lack of motivation, honor it. Create space for genuine rest, not the kind of rest that's designed to make you more productive later, but rest as an end in itself. Let yourself exist without producing anything. Your soul is teaching you that your worth isn't determined by your output, and this lesson can only be learned through direct experience of being valuable simply because you exist. 6. The noise that drowns out your inner voice. The mental chatter never stops. Planning, worrying, analyzing, comparing, judging, remembering, anticipating, and calls this the society of tiredness. We're exhausted not from physical labor, but from the constant mental activity that modern life demands. But here's what most people miss. This mental noise isn't random. It's specifically designed to drown out the voice of your soul. Your inner voice, what Jung called the self, speaks in whispers, in feelings, in subtle knowings that can only be heard in silence. But silence has become almost impossible in a world of constant stimulation. The noise in your head isn't just distraction. It's protection from hearing truths that would require you to change everything about how you live. From a depth psychology perspective, the mental chatter is your ego's defense mechanism against individuation. As long as your mind is busy with surface-level concerns, you won't have the space to encounter the deeper questions that would transform your life. What is your soul actually calling you toward? What would you do if you weren't afraid? What would you choose if you trusted your inner knowing? Spiritually, this is the test of learning to distinguish between the voice of fear and the voice of wisdom, between the chatter of conditioning and the whisper of your authentic self. The noise isn't your enemy. It's showing you exactly what you need to move beyond in order to hear what matters most. The practical path is what I call strategic silence. This isn't meditation as a productivity hack. It's silence as a radical act of rebellion against a culture that profits from your distraction. Create daily periods where you deliberately disconnect from all external input and listen to what emerges from within. Your soul has been trying to reach you through all the noise. It's time to create the space to finally hear what it's been saying. 7. The point of no return. Something has fundamentally shifted inside you, and you can feel it in your bones. You can't go back to caring about the things that used to matter. You can't pretend to be excited about goals that feel empty. You can't force yourself to engage with a world that feels increasingly foreign to who you're becoming. This isn't a phase you're going through. This is who you are now. And talks about the violence of positivity, the cultural pressure to stay optimistic, to keep growing, to never stop believing in the system. But your soul has reached what I call the point of no return. You've seen too much, felt too much, understood too much to ever go back to unconscious participation in collective illusions. From a Jungian perspective, this is the completion of a major individuation cycle. You've integrated enough of your shadow, confronted enough of your projections, and developed enough authentic selfhood that you can no longer live from your persona, the mask you wore to fit into the world. You've become too real for the unreal world, too awake for the sleeping masses. Spiritually, this is what the mystics call the second birth. Your first birth was into the physical world, where you learned to navigate through adaptation and performance. Your second birth is into your authentic self, where you learn to navigate through inner knowing and spiritual alignment. There's no going back because you've literally become a different person. The practical reality is that you now need to build a life that honors who you've become, rather than trying to squeeze yourself back into who you used to be. This means making choices based on your inner compass, rather than external expectations. It means surrounding yourself with people and environments that support your depth, rather than demanding you return to the surface. It means trusting that your soul knows exactly what it's doing, even when your mind can't understand the plan. You've crossed the threshold. The old world is behind you, and the new world is waiting for you to step fully into who you've always been meant to be. The mental noise was never the problem. It was the signal that your soul was ready for something greater than what this era typically offers. Now it's time to claim it.